gear drive, homemade gear drive.
I feel bad for them always having to try and balance.
I know. Well, I better. Assuming your position, the highest one. The highest number. We've been going since like one. They've always shown me, so now it's your turn. When I don't think I can announce anything, I didn't think they were. Treat the good, one short drive.
Now it's set
Oh,
to
okay.
cheating.
Okay.
11:30 to
No, it is like my.
EMS, it went back out to Kingston again on the sewer for a couple trips.
Then all this
They
store.
didn't know how to pass it in.
I've had no time to get.
Yeah.
So when you're gone, it's sometimes it's hard to be away from it.
Yeah, 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 okay.
He was supposed to be, but I saw his phone down.
How does that come to be? No idea.
His brother was going over there.
Well, that's like here in there's counties, Norman, yeah, yeah. And Main Street is supposed to stay.
He told me he didn't have to.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, when they had these seats, before become under the jurisdiction of Highland County, as far as all the legality bullshit goes, it's just,
Is that what happened?
Yeah, because you would know that.
All right, I got 5:30. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all four say aye.
Aye.
Up against? Motion passed. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, all four say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. We'll have mayor's comments in open forum. If anyone would like to speak now, you can head up to the podium. State your name and address, please. No one? All right. Moving on. Number 6, Wastewater Regionalization Project. Jared Vogie.
Evening, Mayor and Council. In your packet this evening is pay estimate number 10 for the regionalization project. The total pay estimate amount is $1,658,780.85. That represents approximately 75% of the overall contract amount. Just by way of an update, the majority of the piping, with the exception of a couple connections, is in the ground. We did have a construction meeting today. The contractor will be moving towards the connection location in St. Cloud to start working on that. Everything exterior of the BNSF railroad right away at this point. They did provide an update that transformers for the lift station. Electrical services are anticipated the end of September, and generators should be on site as of today in November. So that's kind of the update. Currently, they're also working on some cleanup items, some turf restoration that needs to be addressed, things of that nature. So with that, we're recommending approval of pay estimate number 10, and I would be happy to answer any questions that council might have.
So with regards to the generators, you said they're on the ground as of today, but then you mentioned November?
As of today, they told us November.
As of today, November.
Yep. Yep.
So the project will be completed long before
Yeah.
we'll have those in place?
Yeah, before the generators can be connected to the lift stations.
Does that mean the lift stations won't be operating until that time, or will they be able to be operated and us doing what we need to do to push towards St. Cloud?
We're gonna work through those details. It all depends on, I mean, it is a risk not having a generator there, but if we can have a portable that works for that, that might be an option. So we'll be digging into that, because they keep moving deadlines on us, so.
Somewhat ahead of schedule then?
What's that?
Somewhat ahead of schedule?
I would say if the equipment, supply chain and equipment delays weren't, I would say yes, but considering we've been talking about these transformers and generators for a long time, that's what's impacting the schedule. It's not the installation of the materials, it's getting them here. So, yep.
Can we run without that odor control building operational, or?
That's currently being constructed. I don't see that being a time-sensitive issue.
Okay.
That shouldn't be an issue with the project schedule, so.
Any other questions? If not, I entertain a motion to pay, I don't know what the number is here. Schedule payment 10.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any other discussion? If not, all for, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
Thanks, Council.
Thank you. All right, number 7, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, Darren Lee.
We got some handouts here for the council. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Darren Lee. I'm with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. And what we like to do after the session is over is just, the legislative session is just come out to our member cities and give you an update on how things went during the session. So what we are is we're the only advocacy group in Minnesota that represents cities outside of the 7-county metro area. We've got over 100 cities as members. And you can see here, these are some of the issues that we work on. Local government aid, and then is one of our main topics, and then you can see those others there: transportation, labor and employment, annexation, and economic development. So we can go to the next slide. So here's some of our top priorities for 2023. We're asking for a $150 million LGA increase, and also a formula update and inflation population adjustment. So the formula update was just every 10 years we kind of try to recalibrate that because needs change with our cities. The bonding bill, you can see those are some of the issues in the bonding bill that we worked on. Public Facilities Authority funds, which is something, Sarah, we were just talking about, is big, I think, for the city of Foley. Child care, BDPI, lead line inventory was something that we worked on this year. $240 million for that was something that came out of the session. And then for city streets, I don't have a slide for this one later, so I'll mention there is a new ongoing funding for small city streets, and that's cities under 5,000. Previously, there was no ongoing funding for that, but now with the new delivery fee that was put in, that's something that is going to have ongoing funding, we hope, at least for now. And then there's a couple others there, so next slide. So the big picture of the session this year, we had sort of DFL priorities, CGMC priorities, and then other interest groups priorities. And then there was a big ball of dust, and we ended up with some pretty good outcomes. You might be wondering, where's the Republican priorities on there? They were in the minority in both the House and the Senate, so their priorities weren't really given a whole lot of consideration this year. We can go to the next slide. Here we have our budget. So here's the forecast. This is the February forecast. So you can see it was just an obscene amount of money that was available this year. We had 17 billion in the first biennium, and then increasing to 22 billion in the second. The blue there is ongoing funds that are available, and then the orange is your one-time money. So lots of money to spend. You can go to the next slide. So with the DFL in control of the governorship and the Senate and the House, it posed some unique challenges for us. The volume and speed of legislation is just something that I've never seen before, and I think a lot of people at the Capitol just have not seen that level and just speed of legislation and the amount of hearings and amount of bills being churned through. Also with the DFL being mostly urban metro area members, it was also challenging in that regard because we didn't have a lot of members that were in the majority in the outstate area or greater Minnesota area that could really advocate for our cities. And so there was no backstop for proposals like that that might have been harmful to us. So you can go to the next slide. So local government aid, here's what we were asking for. Increase of 150 million, and then the formula that I mentioned earlier, just an adjustment after every 10 years that the census, they take the census is sort of when that's reassessed. And then we're also asking for an inflation adjustment to be put in law, so we don't have to go back to the legislature with our hat in hand asking for an increase every time. So that was the ask. Next slide. So we were fighting for a little piece of the pie with the way the Democrats set their targets. They allotted $3 billion out of that $18 billion for tax cuts, and that's what LGA comes out of. So we were competing with a bunch of different priorities. You probably remember the Walls checks. Those started out as $1,000. They had to shrink down to about, I think, $260. Public safety aid was a new suggestion this year, a new proposal, which, by the way, that also did pass, and the city of Foley is getting $118,000 out of that, I believe, approximately $118,000, which can be used for, fire police. And then another big priority was child tax credits. So there was a lot of money put into that, so it didn't leave us with a whole lot left for LGA. So next slide. Here's what Governor Walz was proposing for LGA. He came out with $30 million in an increase, and it did include the formula updates. We thought that was a very low number. We were extremely disappointed with that, given the size of the surplus that was available to spend. So we put out a statement criticizing that. The governor wasn't too happy with our statement, I don't think, with the timing of it. But subsequently he did, I think we patched things over, and subsequently the governor did increase his request to $40 million. So that was his proposal. Next slide. Here you can see a couple of our mayors testifying on LGA. Mayor Larry Cuff there is sitting next to Representative Liz Lagarde, who was our chief author in the House and kind of was our champion for that legislation last session. We can go to the next one. So here you can see the different proposals coming out. Ours is on the left there. You can see the second year is higher because it would have included that inflation adjustment, whereas the governor and Senate were both flat. That did because they did not have that inflation adjustment in their proposal. They came in both at 40 million. And it was really the House that really fought for the larger number. Wasn't as much as we had asked for, but all things considered, I think the 80 million that was the final outcome was pretty good. So it was a good turnout. So next slide. Here you can see, so here's your city, and you can see on the far left it would have been current law, and then the final outcome on the far right, and then sort of where everybody would have been in between the House and the governor. So I think it's what an increase. I'm trying to read from here. I think it's like what, about 100,000 additional. So not too bad. Bonding. We can go to the next one. So it was kind of interesting this year with the way the bonding bill worked out. There was no bill last year. The Republicans had one, this is sort of the one area where they could exert some leverage because it requires 60% to pass a bonding bill. So the Democrats can't just pass it with their 34 to 33 seat majority. They need to get, I think, 7 Republican members to vote for it. And the Republicans were asking for tax cuts originally before borrowing more money. That was their argument. They wanted meaningful tax relief and then aid for nursing homes. So I think in this picture here, this was when the first bill was taken up on the Senate floor and it failed, and there's our director, Bradley Peterson, there in the picture. I don't think he's very happy there. Looks like he's kind of scowling as he's asking for the bill to be passed. So it failed the first time there in mid-March. And then nothing really happened for a while. The negotiations kind of died down until sort of the end of session, the final week or two, when the Democrats were threatening to pass $1.3 billion in all cash infrastructure, no borrowing, and in that case, because there's no borrowing, they don't need the 60%. So that bill would not have been as good for our member cities as the original bill that failed. So we can go to the next one. So this shows you what that bill would have been. 1.3 billion just in cash. The comparison there for Public Facilities Authority, like we mentioned, clearly on the left was much better proposal for those various items: local roads and bridges, Greater Minnesota housing, and then on the right there, you can see the percentages of the bill, very small, just in the yellow. That's the amount that would have gone to Greater Minnesota compared to the Metro. Next slide. So what we did was we wrote a strongly worded letter to the Republicans asking them to negotiate or work with the majority to pass a bonding bill that we needed to get done for our members. And then in the picture there, that's Eric Simonson, one of our lobbyists, talking to the Republican leader, Mark Johnson, in the Senate I'm not sure if they're actually talking about the bonding bill there at that moment, but we like to joke that that's where they got the deal done right there. So we can go to the next one. They might have been talking about what they had for lunch, I don't know. Session ends with the largest infrastructure package in Minnesota history. So it turned out well. The final outcome there is what was on the left-hand side of that previous slide, and that was what was in the original bill in March. So that ended up getting passed. They also passed a $1.1 billion cash bill. So the combination, $2.6 billion. And that just happened in the final hours. So we can go to the next one. So why did it get done? So I think there's several reasons listed up there. As you can see, it had been since 2020 that there was a previous bill. Pressure from groups like us and other stakeholders, including some of the labor groups, I think, were instrumental in that, and then also other city officials calling their legislator, talking. And then it's not on here, but the nursing home funding, I think, that the Republicans were able to extract allowed them to say that they got something out of the deal, and save face, if you will. So I think that was another key legislator willing to compromise. So we'll go to the next one. Environment is an interesting one. So lead pipes, of course, is an issue all over the state. I don't know if Sarah do you know what your situation is with lead pipes in Foley? Is that something that is an issue?
We have mostly lead goosenecks.
Okay.
Very little lead, but we have a lot of iron pipe galvanized, which the state looks at as lead.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, even the fittings, like those galvanized fittings, that would put it into the category of lead pipes. So the EPA is going to make all cities map out and take an inventory of where these lead pipes are located. That's being put upon us by the federal government. So what we did is we're asking for money for mapping that. And then also, I think it would have been actually to remove all lead pipes in the whole state, I think would have been 900 million. But 240 million is a good start. You can get a good chunk of them removed there. And all cities are eligible for it. And that's going to be through the Department of Health. So that's something that can be applied for to, there's a priority list that you can get on for that funding to get those removed. And that also covers the private portion, which is important. It's the public portion and then the portion of the lead pipe that goes right up to the house, the private property. So that's going to be covered as well. So we go to the next one. And then water infrastructure. Of course, this is a huge issue for greater Minnesota with the cost of these facilities, as you know, and the standards being put in place by the Pollution Control Agency. So $80 million for point source implementation grants, PSIG money, that's big. Water infrastructure, and then $262 million just for individual projects that are named in the bill. And then there was a little bit of legacy money as well. So we can go to the next one. One more ahead. Yep, there we go. So there's one of our lobbyists, Elizabeth Wayfull, testifying in front of the Environment Committee. So it was challenging on environment because, once again, with the Democrats sort of being dominated by members from the cities, there were some environmental proposals that would have sort of maybe make sense for the Twin Cities, but not necessarily for everywhere. Permitting wise, there would have been stuff that would have hampered economic development. It would have made it very difficult to get permits in certain areas, and I think they were basically trying to target sort of disadvantaged communities, historically mistreated communities. But the problem was it was so broad that it would have affected, I think, areas that it wasn't intended to. So we worked to kind of narrow the scope of some of those and prevent Public Facilities Authority money from being sort of moved to the cities and away from greater Minnesota. So we had to spend a lot of time playing defense, and it occupied a lot of our time, so we had to, so it's not only the stuff that, you know, we got done, but it's sort of, we prevented some stuff from getting done that would have been harmful. So that was kind of what we had to do on the environment. So looking ahead, 2024, there could be another bonding bill because typically there is one in the year where it's not a budgeting year, although more recently they've been doing bonding bills sort of sporadically, either every year or skipping a few years. So there could be another supplemental spending bill as well, depending on what the forecast is. And then there's plenty of time for more policy since the budget is done. And then I suspect just with the amount of legislation and how fast it moved, that there's going to be some unintended consequences that are going to have to be fixed there. And then constitutional amendments, I think, would be the final one. There could be something on abortion rights, an equal rights amendment that could go on the ballot next year in the election. So starts February 12th next year, so get ready for the fun. Oh, and I should mention, we've got our events coming up that I want to talk about. Thief River Falls, our summer conference, we'd love to have you there. There's going to be a lot of good information. Like, I just barely covered anything here. We're going to have a ton more stuff to talk about up there. And then we've got our fall conference in Wilmer and our Legislative Action Day, March 20th next year. So we'll hope to see you at those events. Thank you very much for having me.
Does anyone have any questions
Yeah,
for
questions?
Mr. Lee?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, number 8, consider removal of sprinkler sewer charges in 2024. I'm going to defer this to Sarah because I don't know what I'm supposed to say about this.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Council, what I have provided for you is a spreadsheet that shows we went back to 2021, 2022, and 2023, and we calculated all the residential water usage. Basically, by month for the last year and a half since we've been implementing monthly, but it was quarterly in 2021, trying to give you an idea on how much the usage varies from the winter months versus the summer months. Trying to narrow down what would be a winter sewer charge versus a summer sewer charge. And with that, calculating what the revenue loss would be. So, and we use the current rate of $1.95 for all of this, just so we could compare the 3 years. Now I wanna, and as I mentioned in the memo, this year is an extremely dry year and 2021 was an extremely dry year. So the numbers, you know, are a little higher than we probably typically see in an average year. But what I am showing you is if you based on 5 months, if you were to lock in the winter sewer charge based on today's rates, what the revenue losses would be for 5 months. Beyond that 5 months, it's pretty minimal. And you could, you know, you could argue, yes, there's probably less on the front and back end of that 5-month period. But so in 2021, if we were to implement that, it would have been a $90,000 sewer revenue loss. 2022, $54,000. Again, 2022 was probably more of a typical year. But this year so far, very high. We did just calc bills. We were able to squeeze that in before we sent out the packet. Very high usage this month. I did just review some of the accounts, and it's high across the board in a lot of areas. You can tell a lot of outdoor watering, whether it's gardens, whether it's your lawn, and so forth. We figured it was going to be high. But it is in comparison to 2021 what we saw, a little bit less than 2021, but so that's why you're seeing that number trickle upward right now. Based on these figures, you'd probably have to, if you just use these figures here, To cover those revenue losses, you'd be looking at $5 to $8 per month increase in base rate, or just in rate. If you just were to look at the numbers, the loss divided by all the accounts on the system, just to give you an idea. So all I'm intending with this worksheet is to give you an idea on the impact of revenue by making that winter sewer rate change. It was a little higher than I thought it would be, but we have never had a program like that either. So I couldn't say we had an idea exactly what it would be. I can also comment that just people that were on minimum, in May, we had 33% that were at minimum or below minimum. In June it was like 23%. So obviously people are using more water in the summer months, which is what we figured would occur. And if you have any questions, I wasn't expecting any, action. I know we had just talked about moving this forward, and getting some additional information, and that we would include that within the budget discussions. Is there something more you want me to dig into? This was just where we were starting.
So do you get 2,500 gallons of water per month, correct?
For minimum.
Minimum.
Correct, yep.
So if we implement a winter charge, do you get more water then?
No, not in the summer, not in a winter sewer rate. You pay for every gallon of water. But we haven't had any discussion about lowering or changing the minimum. That would be up to you as council.
So what is this benefiting us, just raising the rate $5 to $8 for the sewer then?
I'm just trying to give you an idea on what the magnitude of the lost revenue is. That's all. And there are different ways you can accomplish that. You can do a base rate that's different. You could we've discussed doing a fixed like debt service rate. We kind of pull that piece aside that's servicing the debt, and maybe a portion is dedicated in a fixed charge. There's different ways you can get there. I am just trying to give you a rough idea on what that means for the entire system. That's all.
And when we talked about the sprinkler before, we were talking about maybe $20,000.
Based on, because you were
So now we're at $90,000 with this fixed rate.
Well, because it's everybody.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, it's everybody. So all those little, those minimum users, that just use a little bit more because they have a small garden or whatever, it's gonna help everybody, and every little gallon can add up.
Right, so the idea was, how do we benefit the entire community versus just the folks that wanted to implement, we first talked about a meter, but that seemed not to be the best course of action, when we could do something like other cities are doing and implement a winter rate across the board. Everyone could water their garden, fill their pool, water their lawn, just get charged the water usage, but not the sewer rate that would come along with it. So we'd implement a across the board rate, winter rate. Our loss of revenue in doing so, though it benefits everybody, I'm going to call it, based off of where we're projecting this year, drought years, and then a normal year last year, we could call it an average of $75,000 a year in lost revenue. The way to offset that then would be to increase across all accounts somewhere between $5 and $8 per account on the minimum rate, which is set at what right now? 60,
It
isn't
is
it?
65.81.
So right now it's 65.81. So if we said it was $5 increase, so now we're at $70.81 minimum. Granted, we already have folks that are not happy with the water bills as it is today, but then we can water our lawns and fill our pools and water our gardens and only get charged the water rate instead of being essentially double dipping. So that'd be the offset.
And it's just for 3 or 4 months of the year where your bill's gonna go up, correct?
No, this would be all year long.
Oh, this is all year long now.
That's the amount of revenue that's needed. I mean, yes, that is.
I mean, that or we have to
Well-
eat the revenue loss, which,
Well, and can I elaborate on that? We have to prove to the PFA that we are going to generate enough revenue to make our payments. So if we're gonna do a significant rate change or process, we have to document and show them that we are ensuring that we will make enough revenue. We're committed to that when you sign the contract for the loan.
Right.
So staff is going to want to make sure we have some stability in place, which is why we were saying the $5 to $8.
sure, so
Um.
maybe eating the cost as a city isn't an option, because we need to show that if we're going to not charge for sewer anymore, are we still going to be able to make those payments?
You know, and I'll also say though, the winter rate is probably the easiest to implement.
Yep.
It doesn't require people to install meters, inspections, you know, sign up, this and that. It is a very simple implementation. And it is, like the attorney had pointed out the last meeting, it is equitable, you know,
Yep.
everybody gets it. So those are the pros of that system. It's just finding a way to offset or to generate that revenue, what the council wishes to do. And like I said, there's no action needed. These are just the figures, and we will get more information as we have another month or two. And as I said earlier, it has been very dry. I just don't know, usage is all over the place because of weather, you know, and we don't know if we're gonna continue dry. We may be super wet and it may not be an impact at all, because nobody will have to turn on anything because of the rain. I'm just trying to give you what I have for the information at this point.
Right, I mean, so if it's not a dry summer and everyone's not needing to water as much, well, they're gonna see the difference in their bill because they won't need to pay for as much water. So I mean, it's still to me, the most viable option versus the other route.
And we do have fluctuations, we understand that. We have fluctuations every year with usage. I just need to point out to you what could possibly happen.
Well, aren't we still on schedule to raise the rates again the next year or two regardless if we go to winter rates?
We are on schedule to look at the rates. I do not anticipate we'll have to raise them as high. I think we were slotted for 25%. It should not be that high because of those funds coming in, but the project isn't done yet. So in case there's another change order, that could adjust the final cost. But yeah, we are supposed to do another rate increase. 25% was kind of the end target. Should not have to be that high unless something real significant happens with the project.
When was that slotted to take place?
It was supposed to be 25% for next year.
Just for next year,
But
starting next
just
year.
on the sewer side. That was just, we were just committing those rate increases for the sewer as part of our PFA loan approval.
That's not a minimum charge then, that's just based off of
That was
usage.
based on our existing system. We just have the same rate for everything.
Yep.
And you bring up the other thing that we're working on, and that's what Public Works has been doing this week, is we have to evaluate certain businesses for what they're sending, like strength and different things. There may be some rate adjustments that we have to come forward to the council regarding those situations. So that could change what the overall rate needs to be for everybody else, because St. Cloud requires us to look at these entities, and if they're discharging certain things to us, we have to charge them more based on their schedule. So there's a couple of things that we're still in progress working with St. Cloud on setting up, but 25% is what is slotted right now.
When will we know those answers?
Oh, I would say they'll be later this year. We'll have a better idea. The ones you're visiting now.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'll give you more on that.
Yeah. We have to work through St. Cloud with the process, so.
Well, thank you for the information. I mean, it's good to know what the revenue loss is. I think regardless, we are able to get an average of what to expect. And for the city or the folks of the city to know what to expect from an increase on average if we were to go down this road.
Are we hearing anything from, like, people coming in and paying their water bill and asking questions? I know the rumor is out there.
Yeah, we are getting people that are questioning and commenting. We've gotten calls and people stopping in on both sides. There are definitely people that are interested in removing the sewer charge, especially this time of year because they get those bills and they are really high. But yeah, we are getting comments, not as, I don't think as much as I would think we'd see, but it's not uncommon for us to see more comments until things are implemented, I think, is when you get the majority of people, unfortunately.
With this 90,000 loss per se, and the regulations that we have to follow, is this a big amount that we can't make up?
Well, just to give you, just so you know, the targeted rate or revenues we need to reach in the sewer fund is 1.125 million. Based on our most recent cash flow statement. So we take what we estimate charges to St. Cloud, all our operating debt, all those different things. We have a whole ginormous worksheet that the PFA and I and Bolton and Mink work on together. So it's 1.125. So 90,000 is less than 10%. And with the project, also you saw this during the audit report, we used to have more cash in the sewer fund, and for this project is the reason. We don't have as much cash reserves, so we also need to maintain at least a balance that will get us through if we have a $100,000 emergency repair or whatever it is. So when you have less cash available too, we have to be very mindful of how much rate fluctuation or revenue fluctuation we can handle.
Would we, just thinking, if everyone knew that they weren't going to be charged a sewer rate, we may see more water usage.
I think you will.
And therefore would possibly see additional revenue from water usage side?
Yep, that would be on the water fund, though. That's a different fund.
Okay.
Yep. So the PFA is only looking at our sewer revenues.
Okay.
But yes, I do think you will see more water usage. I think we have seen a decline in some of the water usage because of our rates on the sewer side.
Well, I know this is sort of looking further down the pike, but environmentally, it's not going to be a decade before they are telling us, the government, you have to cut back. That's gonna come. And we've already got citizens who are going to the prairie type yard look. And we're gonna see that happening, and that's gonna also cut in to these funding, and pretty soon the government's gonna tell you, you gotta do it. How is that gonna affect things? There are already communities that this year have put on restrictions.
Mark?
Restrictions are normally put on the cities because they can't handle it by
Their water amounts.
Right, yeah, it's nothing to do with their,
It's got to do with the groundwater and all that, but this is becoming a big issue as far as the environment goes. And we don't want to be caught with our pants down. And it could happen. Just saying. We know what the government already tells farmers who irrigate. And pretty soon they will tell us that that's the same thing for us watering our lawns. So.
Anyone else? Anyone in the public like to speak on this? I'd like to hear the public's comment if anyone has anything to say. Go ahead, step up to the mic, please. We have
Adriana
people.
Brenny, 621 Norman Avenue North. I'm completely fine if you wanna raise the sewer rates across the board for anyone. I'd rather pay $5 to $8 a month additional than the hundreds of dollars that we pay additionally in sewer charges currently per month to water our yard. So, no matter what, to us, that's still a benefit. I guess, and to be honest, that's more fair to everybody. Everybody should be taking the brunt of that, not the people watering their grass or filling their pools shouldn't have to subsidize the sewer fund for the rest of the city. It should be fair to everybody.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
I don't, Bruce Thompson, 1133 Golf Court, again. No, I agree with them also too. I think, you know, this 90,000 or whatever is coming from, people that do, you know, fill pools, water lawns, water gardens and all that, this $90,000 loss. And it's only being paid by a smaller amount of people than the whole city. So I would too, and I'm not gonna be popular with people, with that $5 to $8, that would even it out to everybody for what the actual cost is of the sewer and not just pass it on to those few people. Everybody would be the same, it would be a level playing field, so, my thought. And as far as the wildflowers and all that, I mean, it may come, but it doesn't look as nice as a green lawn either, so.
My one comment, I agree with you guys. It's the fair way to do it, but the average income in Foley is $31,000. If you have 3 kids, that $8 makes a big difference. It can be between using the pool. It can be doing sports in school. $31,000 with a family is not much money. I can live on it, that's right. But somebody with even 2 kids, and I know you guys, it is uneven and it is unfair, but I have to look at the community. Our average income is $31,000. Yes, our median is 65, but the bottom line, our average is $31,000. I know people that can barely afford their rent.
Do you like to pay for things you don't
No,
use
I
or
don't,
need?
and I
Okay.
agree.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with it.
I know.
With it too, and that, and then I'll revert back to the fire hall. All them trucks, that meter is not getting water and sewer, and why can't it? You want to raise revenue, why can't it? Why can't those big companies, multi-million-dollar companies, that are coming and getting that water, why can't they help us out and pay the water and sewer through that meter just like we do? Those numbers would go down.
I agree.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from, and I don't blame you at all.
Right. Okay.
Not at all.
Oh, one more.
So we talked about that, the sewer fund there. In theory, once we're able to start building again, won't those new homes contribute towards that sewer fund? Absolutely. So then you'd be collecting money on that side of it.
Yep, absolutely.
I agree with Bruce, it's been for too long. I mean, I'd be interested to go back how far back people have subsidized the rest of the city and how much money has been paid into that, because I would have to believe it's an astronomical amount of money. So I understand the thing about, you know, charging an extra $5 would be tough on a lot of people. I guess my 2 cents of that would be is if extra $5 is a make or break it thing for people. I think that's a larger question about what we can be doing to help citizens here. My 2 cents on is you make it fair across the board. People are gonna want to take care of their properties better. You're gonna want people to move the community. When new homes start coming up here, they're gonna want to take care and take pride of things. And who knows, businesses are gonna come into town here, so you're gonna get money going to the sewer fund in one way or the other, so, I'm not trying to say that, I'm not concerned about people not being able to pay their bills. How many people are not paying their bills right now is there a percentage that you have that aren't paying their water bills right now?
I can't give you a percentage, but I can say our water shut-offs have been the highest the last cycle they ever were.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a fluke but I think it might have been because of, just some of the other programs running out that we saw with
Yeah.
COVID and such, but we did have the highest number of shut-offs this last
How much,
cycle.
they're shut off, how quickly are they turned back on again then? Are they permanently shut off?
And they're shut off until they pay their bill. So they're delinquent, so they were delinquent, what did we do, like 4 to 5 months, they were delinquent.
How many are delinquent right now?
I don't know, I'd have to
You
look.
don't know that? Okay. Yeah. That's all I say. I would say that, like, what Brandon was saying, make it fair across the board. I think what happens is we just have accepted that, let's just let people pay the extra, over the years, but now it's coming to the point where I guarantee, like, I'm just speaking from a developer standpoint and a builder standpoint. When you start having people come in and putting homes up, and they're required to do front yard sod, seed, 2 trees, and they start watering that, you're gonna see staff get a lot of complaints come up, because I know some of the builders in the area, they're not gonna be, nice coming in and saying all that stuff, especially, and then they're gonna start comparing to other communities, and just be nice to have people coming in saying nice things. So staff doesn't deal with that, so that's my 2 cents on it. Obviously, Bruce has been fighting this a long time. I was here many years ago talking about the same thing, so, I think there is a lot of people out there feeling the same way, whether they come to the meeting or not. I can only go off of the residents I talk to on a daily basis, so.
Thank you.
Evelyn, Evelyn Kirby, 50 Broadway Avenue North. What kind of impact would it be if all of us that have the sprinkling systems and separate meters just have service discontinued?
And have a separate meter
We
on?
have a separate meter for our sprinkling system. It's not on our personal ones. We have two systems there, and we have 2 separate meters.
That'd be a Mark question.
Included in these calculations, cause you're paying sewer on that separate meter too.
But what kind of an impact would all the, the people around here that have these things, if we all just say discontinue our service?
Roughed it with that spreadsheet, we've tried to get a majority of them, not that we had all of them, and we have people that don't have sprinklers that may just run around with their own personal sprinklers. I mean, that was what, 20K?
It was 20,000.
Yeah. It'd be hard to pinpoint that, we'd have to do some more digging into all the sprinklers, but I mean, it's included in these calculations, but it would probably be somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Of that 90,000 figure.
Okay, because from what I have been hearing, there are several of us that are going to discontinue service on our sprinkling systems.
And that would be, if that were to happen, that would be, the city would have to figure out how to account for that lost revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be, that's factored into this with your sprinkler.
How many sprinkling systems that have separate meters are there in town, do you know?
That'd be a Mark question, I'm not sure, roughly.
Probably 5, maybe.
Oh, is that all? That have the separate meters?
I believe so.
I was aware of 0.
It's just basically another residential meter is what it is.
No,
It's a
I understand that, but that was never brought to us before, that there was separate meters already.
It's mostly the new construction that,
It's only on associations, cause who
Yep.
you build, it's like an apartment.
No,
that's it.
just good to know.
Yeah, that's why I believe it's 5.
because your sprinkler comes on a separate bill, and then your association pays that
Right.
for the common area.
And we've had to raise our HOAs already just to pay that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I can understand that you need the money, but like the lady here was saying, there are a lot of people here in Foley with the minimum income. They're hurting. And if you've got a family of even 2 or 3 or 4, you're looking at a $400 to $500 water bill. That's kind of hard to take. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any further discussion on this, or do we need to take any action on this? Oh.
Hi, Deb Olson, 600 Dewey Street. I mean, I know you know my feelings on the water bill. I do see winter rate, flat rate, 12 months clear across the board would be more acceptable versus the thought that the elite few had a separate sprinkler system and not contributing to the overall cost of our new sewer pipeline. When I went around for the community garage sales, I could not believe how many people are considering putting up their houses. Part of it is because of the water bill and all the increases that they're enduring, and they can't afford it. But then on the flip side, they're worried they aren't going to be able to sell their house because of the increase in the water bills and everything else that is going up. But you guys have to come to a happy medium to help one and all, not the select few, please.
Thank you.
As a real estate professional that sells homes in Foley, I've never had anybody say to me that they want to sell their house because of the water or sewer rate. And so I guess that'd be firsthand experience there. Again, it's going back to you're making residents pay for a service that they are not using. So I can understand if somebody's using X amount thousands of gallons and it's going back into the sewer. This is not the case. This is going into the yard, garden, pool. That's not going back into the sewer system. And again, once the restrictions open up and we're allowed to start allowing developers to come back in again, that's going to start contributing to that sewer fund. So right now it's tough because we're capped on development at the moment in the city. So when in theory, Sarah, will that open up then for developers to start being able to at least talk about developing land?
Yeah, it's near that point right now.
Okay.
Because there's a certain lag time with putting in infrastructure. So
Yeah.
right now, if we were to go to the state with a sanitary sewer extension permit, we'd probably get some conditions, but we could probably get one,
Okay.
being that the pipeline project is 80% complete.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest movement or most likely movement will be starting next year.
Okay. So then we'll start seeing some of that money go into the sewer in theory, correct? Into the sewer fund.
As soon as we can get development, there's other
Yeah.
hurdles, regarding the cost of
Yeah.
infrastructure and all sorts of other things. But yeah, assuming that we can get through those other items.
Yeah, we've just been in this weird stagnant phase where we can't
Mhm.
develop any land, so we're feeling the extra burden right now until we get all this hooked up. So I have to believe once this is done and people like, hey, Foley's open for business, we'll get some developers, or you won't have to turn away developers.
Well, and
that
part of
part.
the big investment into the sewer project was that we wanna grow Foley and
Yeah.
share that
So
amongst future as well.
I guess it's tough to say when that will happen, but at some point it will
Mhm.
happen, so.
I want to thank everyone for coming up and speaking. Is there any other thing we need to do with this right now?
No, I would just ask if you have anything else that you want me to, some information you need or you want me to look at, we'll bring that back into a budget discussion or, the next meeting, but I guess what other information do you want or need, let me and the staff know and, we'll dig into that.
Sounds good. Department reports, police, Katie McMillan.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, first quite a few things for you guys this month. To start off with, we had the stat report. We had 387 calls for the month of June, and that's with traffic enforcement is down. So our numbers are very high. Some suspicious activity is up, which we encourage people to call and make those reports because we cannot be everywhere at once and see everything. Medicals are up compared to the last month. Ordinances are up. I'm out there enforcing them. Reminder to everyone, yes, even though your grass may not be tall, but your weeds are, you still have to mow your weeds, please. Save our time, please, in front office for sending out the letters. Animal complaints, it's on a steady increase and even starting here in July. Reminder to the community, you have to register your dogs with the city of Foley. Come in City Hall, it's a one-time license, $20 fee for a lifetime of your dog. Get that taken care of. And your dogs have to be on a leash. We have a lot of times this last weekend, we had 2 incidences, same dog, lunged at our officers. The officers had to defend themselves against the dog. Keep your dogs on a leash. And also pick up after your dogs. So those are we're getting a lot of increased animal calls, and they are time consuming too. Bike rodeo was last month. I don't think I updated you on this. 146 kids attended, which is our largest event ever. A huge thank you to City Hall staff, Public Works, and to all the businesses and organizations who helped donate and make this possible. Without all their support, we wouldn't have a bike rodeo. On Thursday is our Root Beer Float Social here at City Hall. 1 o'clock is the start time, and it goes until 2:30 or until we run out of ice cream and root beer. Is there any questions or anything for me before I go on to my next 2 items?
I want to say thank you for putting on the bike rodeo. It was very well attended and well done, and I'm glad to see that you had record attendance.
And I heard from 2 little kids at Coffee with the Counselor who thought that was really cool. So you got a cool police department in Foley.
That is great to hear. Thank you. If nothing else, we'll first move on to the consideration of the cannabis ordinance. In your packet, you will find a copy of the ordinance that the Benton County has drafted and to put in place in public places the use of cannabis. This limits cannabis being used in public places such as your parks, your pools, and things like that. Per the law, we can limit where cannabis is used. I guess what I'm looking for is council's consideration or thoughts, input on putting an ordinance like this in place, because I look at, yes, it is legal, but we have to also keep in mind the health, safety, and welfare of everyone. And so I think I get concerned about the parks, the pools, and places where kids attend.
I read through the proposal. I think it's well stated. I think, again, you run into problems where kids go to school. They're going to school. They're standing at a bus stop. That's not as well addressed, but I don't know if it would be a problem even. But I did think it was very well written. But we do have things that sort of cross, because federal government, this is still all illegal to the feds.
Correct.
So we sort of have that blanket if we have a problem, like with the school area. So I thought it was a good ordinance.
Is there any enforcement on this? Is there any repercussions if you arrest someone? Or, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know what the right terminology is.
Well, this is still in the drafting stage with the county. Basically, when they put their in place, we will probably copy the similar, so then it's similar all across the board, uniformity. And to me, it would be a petty misdemeanor or misdemeanor offense, which is just a citation. unless they put something drastic in there that I'm not aware of, but I would believe will fall under the same ordinance violations as like your nuisances or things like that.
So then is the ask that once the draft is completed and it's official, that we would, as a city, put a similar ordinance into place?
Well, they are asking for our input or our thoughts of it. I do have to let them know by tomorrow. So I'm just looking for they're kind of looking for what we're gonna look at doing when it does come into play.
I'm okay with the draft that was presented to us, and I also believe that, we're gonna have situations that come up, we'll have to address that at that time.
Right.
But, to coincide with the county, I think it's a step in the right direction.
If I could add, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
The county really, I think, is also looking at, the cities have the right to do something else. And I think they're reaching out just because if the county we were to be consistent across the board, it would also be easy for people entering our county, whatever city they're in. And I know we talked about it a bit at the staff level. I think the biggest thing, we have some areas that are, a lot of youth attend and things like that, and we struggle with how that will be portrayed in our municipal pool and how we'll handle those situations. So I think from a staff perspective, we do see some benefit by doing this. But ultimately, it's up to the city we'd have to establish our own ordinance, but to mirror the counties, if that's something we're interested in, will make it easier.
I would agree and say, tell the county we're gonna mirror theirs.
All right, thank you. Is anybody else input on that?
I agree.
Okay, the next item I have is the permanent part-time position that we discussed at personnel level. The funding for that position is budgeted in this current budget. What we are looking into is it would be basically a different position with the union. So what I'm looking for is the council to authorize me to talk to the union to discuss how we can set up this position with them, so that we're all under the same understanding of if they qualify for benefits or if they don't, or if they meet certain hours. Because there's a gray area that we fall into. If they are a permanent part-time employee, if they get over 30 hours, technically they could qualify for benefits. But we're looking at 20 hours, which is in between. So that's where we need to discuss this with the union and how that would look. So I'm looking for council to get the approval for me to reach out and have this dialogue with the union.
We need a motion on that? Okay. I make the motion that, we instruct the police department to talk to the union about creating a permanent part-time position.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this? If not, all for say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
Thank you. That is all I have for you, unless you have something for me.
I have one thing.
Yes.
So, don't we have a, I don't know what the right wording is here. If you have a vehicle on your street and doesn't have current tabs, is that something we can start looking into?
Yeah.
Parked on the street?
Yep, if it's parked on the street, that would fall underneath the junk vehicle ordinance that we have.
Okay. In my walkings,
Okay.
I've been noticing
Yeah, just let me know.
several.
Yep, and what it is, if they're displaying it, and it may be current in the system too, so that's always something that we have to look into. Just let me know of where, and we can look into that matter.
Sounds good. Anyone else have anything for police chief? City
Keep up the good
engineer?
work.
Oh,
Thank
City
you.
engineer Jared Griffith is not here.
There was nothing, right?
23.
Yeah, go ahead. Jared, you're slimming down.
No, I'm Mark, Crappin Foods.
Oh.
We're gonna go on to that?
Oh, go ahead. I thought you
Yeah.
were doing both.
Just so you know, everybody.
Thought you were doing them both.
Well, I will. So, only thing we have, Jared, 23 is obviously open. There's some punch list items left they're working on. I think all of our stuff is pretty much done. The, radar feedback sign, we're waiting just for some final approvals from MnDOT. Having trouble fitting it in out there, between there and the sidewalk, but plan is to get that up, out by on the other side of 13th, so.
Well, that speed limit sign, that extended way further back now.
It'll be 45, where the trail starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's too tight in there for like snow removal, so we're working with MnDOT on options.
Okay.
And Nick, this design has our battery for it, so we need that back too. It blew up. So that's what that is, the RFBs, RFBs. We have not heard an update when they're coming, but they're on the list. I mean, so all the foundations are in, everything's ready to go, so. Other than that, I think there's, anything else in 23 you have questions on? No. Going on to ours, Sarah Lee, we're doing the pre-treatment discussions with the 7 non-permitted industrial users, very long, thorough meetings with them with St. Cloud. We are gonna have to, most likely, probably gonna recommend that we update our ordinance a little bit this fall. Just some things that we're learning by visiting these businesses. Nothing major, nothing that's, it might be how they store their hazardous chemicals or their cleaning chemicals in their building, things like that, and we can ensure it's not gonna get dumped down the sewer. We have to be as stringent or more stringent than St. Cloud. Like right now, our SIU with Kent Foods is more stringent than St. Cloud, so we could look at charging them more for strength, cause we'll be sampling it and taking their fines away or something like that. So there'll be stuff you'll be getting in the next 3 months or something like that. I mean, it's gonna be a process through City Hall, St. Cloud, and everybody we gotta figure out, but we are working on that, but it's gonna have to, I think, be done before we hook up, is my understanding, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so.
We're pretty dang close to it.
Yeah, so St. Cloud's been very helpful. We have a meeting tomorrow morning in Sartell with our cities, so I'll get a little more there. Other than that, just general city stuff going on. Like for us, Fun Days was good. Guys did a great job on cleanup, cutting park trees, painting crosswalks, that kind of, the general summer stuff. Pool's going good. We had our inspection. It was relatively good. The same stuff that we hear about, but anything safety and all that was fine. Everything was good. All the testing was good, and all the safety stuff was good. So, other than that, I don't know if I have anything else public works, unless you guys do.
On the water flushing, where are we sitting on that?
We haven't done any, since spring. We
Yeah,
had that
right.
complaint on the north end. We did go up, pull the meter, and I think what happened is, we had flushed the mains, and then, what it takes is a good flushing of your line to get it out of there, and I don't think that happened. It happened over days, because when we pulled the meter, I wasn't up there, the guys, were up there, they said it was almost clean, the line was. But then again, Wednesday night, we took, 60,000 gallons out of the hydrant down in the corner by my place for a fire south of town, and maybe more, and we stirred it up. I had 2, I think the city hall had 2 complaints. I don't know how double they were, so only one lasted a couple days, but I'd rather not flush until we have to, especially when we're already using our wells. I don't know what we did the last 2 days. I wasn't out there this morning, but had somebody else. But usage is up. We're still doing. I ran a second well this weekend just to give the main one a break. I doubled them up, so we're okay on water yet. Anything else, Public Works?
I don't know if this covers you or the fire department or what, but are we seeing an increase in spontaneous hay bales? I don't know if you've been getting the calls. I know they're on that fine line, but they are increasing. in numbers with
I
this.
don't wanna say they're increasing. We had a pile of several hundred hay bales burned last Wednesday night. And, we had 2 of our mutual aid departments down there for 4.5 hours, and I say we hauled water. That's 50% of the possibility of the cause. They also had machinery running there. During the day, I can't eliminate a spark coming out of the tractor, so whether it was spontaneous, I don't know.
Yeah, this heat and everything
Yep.
is really causing them to pop off.
Yeah, it is dry, I'll say that. If anybody, we had a grass fire today, she was burning garbage in the pit and went in the house and came back out and everything was on fire, so it is dry. Jump to fire, like I say, we've been busy. We had 4 calls today, 2 medicals, an injury accident and a fire, so we had several fires, nothing big, knock on wood, besides that hay bale thing, but that fire's been very busy lately. Couple things we had in the packet, in our CIP, in 2025, we have replacement of tanker number 3. With lead times and everything, we'd like to start the truck committee on this. Right now, if we were to order today, it'd be late with one vendor. A vendor we've used on our last tanker. It'd be about 2025, well into 2025, we would get it. My repair guy was there today, and he said he had closer to 2 years, and yeah, that'd be 2 years. It's like 700 days or something like that. So what that is, we put a committee, and a couple reasons why we're doing it. It's on the CIP. Sauk Rapids and Rice are also looking at water tenders, and there's a possibility we would all work together and order from the same vendor, which could save money. Sauk Rapids Hotel did it on their aerial truck. You get a deduct. Something we want to be able to look at with them, because they are definitely getting one. So it would come back to the city, like I say, before, probably late this year, I would think it would be, before any purchase or any approval. And, so basically what we're doing is just starting a committee in case people hear we're doing a truck committee, and start going around to vendors and area departments looking, gathering information. It does come out of fire funds, and we have it budgeted into the formula we use. I did get a price today, and this was ballpark, and I just gotta look. Real ballpark was, this was 360. I'd say we're gonna be in that 400,000 range for a tanker. We had said we'd hope for that 300. Prices are going up. I will say, I don't know if we're gonna order before November. They are gonna go up 5% probably again. Most trucks are going up more than that. I will say engines, Zimmerman ordered an engine, and it's 2027 delivery, so tankers are a little less. So can we be granted permission to form a truck committee to start gathering specs?
Real
It would
quick.
replace a 1999 Freightliner tanker, yeah,
Okay.
single. And we'd probably go with a tandem 3,000 gallon tank.
You mentioned 2 pieces of fire equipment in,
Yep, I was gonna do one and then do the other,
okay.
if that's okay.
I'm okay.
Do I have to have motion or anything on it? No, just consensus.
Consensus is fine, it comes back.
Yep.
For approval.
The other one I have, I don't have 100% info that I wanted to have. We did not have a meeting this month due to the fire. In past, the Fire Relief Association, which is a separate entity of the fire department, has paid for the small vehicles. It's, we bought the last couple Tahoes, we bought the Suburban, I believe. We bought the pickups out of our relief. It's our gambling money, basically, our calendar, our raffle tickets, things like that. Any donations we get, we can put into there. The last truck came from Eden Prairie about, I don't know how many years ago, I apologize. It's got about 120 on it. It's starting to show it's time to go. We would like to, what we'd like to do, the problem is these vehicles, there's not many out there anymore due to you can't get a Tahoe, I think we all know that. And probably want a Tahoe or a Suburban, and we would like red. There's not a lot of them out there. If one comes available, can we be granted permission with however we want to do it to put a bid in on it and purchase it? I'll give you some X numbers, and then, after, we'd have to, like with Sarah, we would have to then, come back to the council, but we'd already have it purchased at that time. The relief would then pay, and I don't have this number because we didn't have a meeting, the relief would then pay you back the $50,000, and we can put a cap on what it is. There was off the side discussion from people, 50,000, 60,000, we would pay you that money back. So,
Do they just buy the vehicle, or or you just transfer the equipment over, or lights and sirens, or how does that all work?
ideally, we will find one that's equipped.
Okay.
The last one. There was one here about 3 weeks ago, and that's one reason, maybe it's 4. A 2020 Suburban with 36,000 miles, a command unit with a light, all fully lit and everything. And that was $52,000 for that vehicle. And that was, like I say, yeah, if we go something buy new or one without, then we would have more time. We could come back to the city. You know, we might look at the option of a new one, but we'd rather not, just to get a price of what it is on Sourcewell or somewhere through Murphy or whoever.
I'm comfortable at 60,000.
Can I have one thing that and this was not brought to the membership, it will be to the relief membership. The relief will reimburse up to 60,000, but we get the old vehicle back to sell. I mean, we bought that. We have a 2010 Tahoe. We get the proceeds of that money to go back against that 60,000.
Sure, I don't have a problem with that.
And this has to go to the relief, so, you know, I'm speaking a little bit it is a separate entity, and we have a separate board on Brandon. I don't know how much you know about it. It's a separate board and everything, so.
Are they gonna have a meeting to replace the one from Wednesday night, or wait till 3 months from now?
We'll have one, I can talk, we're probably gonna do one tomorrow night, is what our plan is. We're probably gonna try to put a meeting, if you have time, we can do an hour drill or something like that.
Okay.
It was just too late on Wednesday night getting back. So, do we have to have that be for a purchase? And
I would.
Who authorizes me, I guess is what I want.
Well, if the city's purchasing it, the council has to authorize you.
We have to follow bidding.
Yep. What we'll have to, if the council wishes to authorize him to do this, we'll need a motion, and we will also need to be provided a comparable quote, which I have explained to Mark about. And you would basically set the bar at a level, or a cap it at a certain dollar figure. So if it's 60,000, you should also include in that motion, if you do intend to reimburse or refund the relief for the proceeds of the sale of the old one. That should also be specifically identified in the motion. So we just want to make sure that there's some unique things at play when you go to bid. You can't wait 4 weeks to come to a council meeting, but we have to have a motion that the council understands exactly what we're doing. It is, the comparable quote would be a new one, which would obviously be more, which is why we're looking at the alternative. So I would just need a dollar amount that you authorize it, and then specifications that the relief gets the proceeds, if that's what you wish to do. So if you make a motion, please include all those items.
So is there a tax title and license on these when you bid them?
Fire is just minimal transfer.
So I'm just saying, if you're bidding on a 50,000,
yep,
it's not gonna go over 60.
No, Public Works does tap fire, and I believe police do not pay
Okay,
for
I
a
just
marked
want
emergency
this,
vehicle.
I just want this so whoever motions it
Yep.
understands.
Yep. No, as far as I know, do not change.
Chief is requesting a motion. Is anyone willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion that, we authorize, the replacement of rescue truck number 8 with a cap at 60,000 for the purchase, and when the Tahoe is sold, the proceeds go back to the relief fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jack, Mayor, those funds would then be reimbursed to the city from the Relief Association.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, just
Yep.
so everyone's clear, we know.
We'll make sure that gets in the
Yep.
minutes.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? If not, all four say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
I don't think unless you have something for me on either side.
Administration, Sarah Brunn.
Okay, first item, I just wanna let you know Winterfest is postponed for now. They had a few committee members resign. And unless somebody else would like to step up and take it, they have just decided to just postpone at this point, and see what happens. So don't worry about that unless you hear from them. Also wanted to provide you, the Minnesota Rural Water Association, we work with them, we're members, in that organization. You might have caught in the news about a PFAS settlement by 3M. We don't have a lot of information yet, but Minnesota Rural Water did reach out, and we did sign up as part of that settlement through their organization. So we are potentially entitled to some of those funds, which will help with, the intent is to help with treatment of PFAS. I can't elaborate on exactly the PFAS testing. I know we've just done a little bit of it. I don't think was anything too.
Well 3 is the only one that normally
Yep.
has any showing. Down
So-
by storage sheds.
It's a new standard, you know, it's a new piece of water quality standard that they're working on, so there's still a lot to be learned about it and how we're going to treat it. But I just want you to be aware that we are working with other cities through that organization on tapping into any funding that we may be able to get into. So more to come. I'll definitely update you as I hear. And then just a couple other things that just through the discussion at the meeting. We were talking about native grasses and landscapes. That was passed in legislation this year. We're still learning what that all means for the city. That amongst tons of other legislation, I have never seen anything like this my entire career in city government. But we have a lot of things that we are sorting through, and even the state is not quite sorted through all of it too. So we will be having lots of information. We're gonna have to do some things on our end with all this new legislation, whether it's cannabis, whether it's duty disability, elections, lead pipes, paid family leave. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. So I encourage you to keep up with those league bulletins, you know, educate yourself, and we'll pass along information and action items as we need. But again, some of that stuff already came into place, but even the state's not ready for it, so we're just gonna move forward as following their lead on these items. And then the other big item I just want to bring forward, we're starting to work on budget. Worksheets have been distributed to the department heads. The CIP went out a few weeks ago. Couple things with budget, you know, some of the LGA, some of those programs that were mentioned in our presentation tonight, we'll be looking at implementing those. But, you know, the other thing, inflation is still kind of high, so there's still some uncertainty with some of the, you know, insurance numbers and so forth, but we'll have some information and we'll do the best we can as we navigate all this. If you have any questions, concerns, things that you want to know if they're included or not in the budget, let me know, or make sure you bring those items to my attention whenever you can. It does help us. We had to frame that budget up, and we know where we're sitting. And then we start looking, okay, what can we adjust, what can we work on? It's really hard for us if we get a few $100,000 wild card at the end. It's harder for us to find it and try to squeeze those things in. So the more information I can have ahead of time, the better it is for us to try to find ways to get it done. So, any questions for me? Okay, that's all I have unless you have.
Well, as a side note, thank you for putting on we'll call it the employee appreciation event.
Oh.
That was very nice and well attended from what I could tell, and thank you.
And I smelled like a barbecue the rest of the day, but.
All right, old business. I'm gonna have Brandon talk about the welcome signs before we get into this county building thing.
Perfect. So the Economic Development Committee has selected the 4 artists that are going to submit proposals on August 15th, so about 5 weeks. Some of the questions from those artists in their dealings with other cities on similar projects, the city would utilize their public works and even their city engineer for the footings, and use the engineer to help decide where those footings should be placed. It helps keep the budget costs low versus them using the budget dollars for the project being put into it. So some of them said even just going out to a third-party design engineer to decide where the footings ought to be placed can cost $4,000 to $6,000 just for that. Where these other cities that have city engineers, the cost is considerably less, if nothing. So I guess what I'd be looking for is can we get the city to agree on some possible in-kind to maybe a certain amount of money or dollars that we would assist in footings and or structural engineering where those footings ought to be placed, including possibly even a concrete slab if so needed.
Go ahead.
I just asked, when Brandon asked me about it, I just said it was
Yeah.
a discussion to have. I know we had assisted with, the mural and a couple little things here and there, and I just mentioned to Mark, I don't know what his thoughts are, but it isn't uncommon for us to provide some support for some of these projects, so I guess it's just up to you if you're okay with, the engineer, we do get billed for that, but, we also are mindful if we're bringing the engineer out, we're doing something else, so it's part of the stop or whatever, but I guess, do you have any comments or concerns?
Always happy to help.
I guess the biggest, we won't know until you decide on a artist and what their concept is, if it's just sitting on the ground or, Sartell just has Sartell by the old paper mill.
That's why I think Brandon was suggesting even if a dollar amount to start with that, and then we would have an idea, once we selected the artist. And there is going to be some working with, once the concept is discussed, how it's gonna all fit in and what we need to do. We know it's not about just plopping something right in, we might have to do some other things as well.
Right, it'll need to be affixed to some degree.
Okay. So you need a number or not?
I would.
One shaking their head yes, one shaking their head no.
I don't know what that number would be.
I would say come back in August once you've got us something, a concept, I guess, or September.
Can I let them know as they're trying,
Yes.
because they have to budget and they have to prepare a budget for us
Yes.
with that proposal that the city is on board with, to some extent, of assisting with those
If we're
charges.
talking lighting and everything else, that might be a different story. That's what solar's for.
Correct, yeah, no.
Well, and maybe that we could suggest to them just to put an allowance, and then we would know if that number is working or not, and what it's gonna cost them to do that, or what they project that to cost, or something along that lines.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, discussion on county building acquisition report from committee.
Great. So, Councilman Gondek and I have gone through and toured the county buildings, and with the thought or opportunity that that city could move into that existing building, we did that. We thought a few different things. One being, is it the right move for us as a city to move into that building, being it's quite large, a large space to fill, and would it be cost worthy to do so, and then what do you do with this building? The county asked us to meet again this past week, and they brought up some concerns that I had originally with just the cost and of the overhead expenses of operating the building, being there's multiple boilers, it is an older building, and they also have some tenant opportunities as well, one of which is the U of M extension office that would reside or remain in the lower level of the building, and then the thoughts of the care program moving over to that building as well, which seemed like a lot going on. They let us know that U of M would remain below, but CARE would actually remain in their current facility, and it seemed like that was something that they wanted to do there. And then from an expense standpoint, they proposed opportunities where they would actually take on those expenses and the maintenance piece of the building for, we'll say X years, 2, 3, 4 years, and then from there go into maybe a contractual, paying for services rendered, if you will, being that we don't have anyone that's boiler licensed certified. Didn't sound like they really wanted to sell us the building per se, for anything more than $1. Is really kind of what it came down to. But I think it was made clear what else would they do with the building. And we know that we have an opportunity where we're going to need to grow as well, with admin support and police. So, my feelings were there was opportunities, at least with some of their options, to take on the thought of that project. I think one of the bigger things that came from our discussion, though, was what could we do with this space as a city, and the possibility of, what if the library were to move into that building and take on a majority of that space and use it and allow the city to expand in its own building, especially being it's our trademark, if you will. What do you have to say, Jeff?
Part of that building is the old part of the courthouse would be torn down. So basically we would, if everything was to fall into place, it would be the new addition where the jail used to be and the sheriff's office. That would be the part that would be inhabited, let's say. From an economic standpoint, I think it would be more viable to have the library move down there so they could also expand. In our talks, there sounds like they have an issue with how much the county is actually spending on the library. And that's something that they're going to need to work out. There again, we'd also would like to hear from the library board too, to say, are they willing to expand? There's a lot of things, there's still a lot of moving parts. I do believe the commissioners would like to work with us on it, but there's still more information to come. But we'd like to hear what your feelings are.
And I'll point out too, one of the concerns with having these additional tenants that we'd essentially be taking on. They even mentioned the U of M extension, for example, utilities would be taking up a large portion of square foot of the building, and so them understanding that they would be paying for utilities, in common area, if you will, with regards to that. We know another concern was, just cleaning the facility. That's a much larger facility, and we have a cleaning person that helps assist here. Is that too much to take on for that one person, or would we have to look at additional support? I'm not any longer completely opposed to the thought of moving down there if there's could be something worked out with the county as we continue to hear what they have to say or offer. I know they want to work together towards something. They had not thought about the library moving down there, and I think that's something they're taking back, to their board to think about. And again, the library also has to be on board with that thought or that process. But that seemed, do we work out something? Because we have an obligation to the library, especially with regards to this building. And do we help support the library being over there by paying the county rent? It costs us money regardless, And I think the number for the county alone was for the library was about $534,000, if my memory serves me, that they spend each year on the library as well. So they have an obligation too to help support the library.
Yeah, I'll just add, so we are in a contract with Great River on the library, and basically the county provides that monetary support based on a per capita of the whole Benton County. And then we provide the space, the building, the furniture, you know, take care of all their utilities and all that. That's what the city provides. And I just want to read it, no part of the discussion was about not having a library. We're trying to find the best way to utilize and meet the growing needs and utilize the space that we have available. So one of the members that was there sits on the Great River board and indicated that the Foley Library was possibly looking at trying to acquire more space or expanding. You know, they've been doing well. So we're trying to get more information from that side of it, I guess too, to see if we can't maybe help everybody involved with the building and so forth.
None of this is gonna happen until they build a building though.
And they're actually pushing to move that forward quickly.
Okay.
I mean, what did they say, start next year,
It
construction
would,
in
yeah,
spring?
it'd be moved, they'll be moved in by May, is what they're hoping. May of 2025.
Yeah.
So not
2 years.
not too long from now, yeah.
We've got some time.
What they're looking for from us is just our interest to entertain the thought. Or they need to know if we're a hard no. You know, if we thought, no, we don't want anything to do with discussions with this building, whether it's library, city, or anything, they need to know that right now. Yeah. If we were at least entertaining or willing to entertain over time the movement of City Hall to that building, or maybe doing something with the library, they need to know that as well. But more so, they need to know, are we a no? Because they need to then tactfully approach it differently on how they present, this to the public. Because this goes, I think, I feel like September.
Yeah, they're gonna do their public hearing for their debt issuance.
In September, right?
Yep, and part of that is, providing a plan to the public on what they're looking to do.
And one of the questions will be, what's going to be done with the old building?
Right.
And they want to know if the city is going to entertain something with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are on the hook for anything in particular, but are we at least willing to continue to have discussions and entertain the ideas? But if it's a hard no, they would like to know that as soon as possible.
Yep.
And that's where then our committee comes into play as far as what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are to move the library down there and use this space. I don't think taking over the whole building is a great idea, but if we're gonna have to pay them rent for it, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Does anyone else on the council entertain the thought of moving City Hall to that location? Keep in mind, they also, I don't know what is there right now, their HR, the furthest left side of the building, when you're looking at the front, is the thought of where City Hall would go. And off the back is their council chambers, where they intend to leave everything, all the technology, the TVs, right, the chairs, the tables, everything. They're not taking anything with them. And so their thought would be, we could quite literally move into a already set up office space with desks and furniture and things already in place, to take over quite literally where they left off. So that's the intent of this, from a space standpoint, where it would make most sense right away without doing any sort of remodel to the rest of the building.
There is an issue with, they were saying it's user friendly and being able to move in right away, but, our discussions also brought up too that, you know, there is no window as we have here right now to divide staff from the public. So it's not really move-in ready. Those are still some things that would need to be worked out.
And the police admin support issue,
Yes.
we have provide all the administrative support of the public, you know, facing for the PD. PD, you know, we'd have to figure out logistics on that. That was the other, you know, issue with that space, where they would go and how that would,
And garages
and garage space,
was
lack
the
of.
other, I mean, there is no garage space. So something would either have to be constructed, or there was talks of an old carpool below the building, which.
The old carport is below the, county boardroom. But we're concerned, I don't know how tall it is. It's an old cubby kinda area. And it probably, I think it would only have room for like 2. Does that sound right? There's not much room. I mean, we were in the basement level of it. It didn't look like much room.
No, I'm gonna say 1, I think. You know, it's tight.
Deb, Gary, any?
Sounds to me like we can't give them a hard no yet, but we've gotta really put our nose to the grindstone and seriously make a decision in between now and our meeting on August, whatever the date would be. I don't think we can putz.
I mean, I know it would take quite a bit to work with the library. I mean, we're talking about board meetings with them and their understanding and desire to even entertain the idea as well. That's where I would be, is going after the library first and seeing what opportunities lie there and what they're willing to do, and then what the county would be willing to do after that. Cause then that still leaves, you know, county on the hook then for that building, and that's kind of what they need to know is, you know, are we gonna continue to own this building and operate it, and then have additional tenants such as the library?
I think it's also, fair to say, I don't think the county has other options right now. Too, so I think they would be somewhat flexible if we need a little time to figure this out. But we also understanding that they wanna be able to present to their constituents what the real picture is.
Right.
Has the library looked over there, or have they even, has
No.
it been on their radar?
No, I mean, I've only had the discussion here with the
Okay.
local librarian, and we talked about that at our committee meeting too. I didn't wanna get anybody all worked up until we knew what we were looking at, because, we know it's kind of a complex situation, and, that is what, we will work on if there is interest from the council. I don't wanna do anything if there's no interest from the council either. So we can do that if that's something that you wanna entertain, and then bring back some more information.
I think that's what we need to do, to make a reasonable, logical decision with a hard decision. We need to really look at it seriously.
So is the council wanting to explore the library option more so than the opportunity of City Hall relocating to the building? I mean, 'cause that's the other thing we'd have to really think about. I mean, is that even an option? Do we want to do that? Or do we want to really focus on this library opportunity first?
Well, I think if the county's kind of married to the library with their funding. So if that goes, that's fine. If we need to move over there, that's discussion down the road. I don't know if we need to move down there, cause then like I said, is this gonna be all police department then, or we're still
No,
short?
police has to go with admin,
Oh,
unless
okay.
you wanna hire
Then
more
just-
support,
Just the library.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, then the thought would be, what do we do with this building?
Right.
Does
Yep.
this become just library? The whole building?
It's
you
a
know.
nice building. I mean, I will tell you, this building is much nicer.
Yeah.
And not that they have taken very good care of it, but when you talk about, accessibility, when you talk about the systems and, you know, the age,
Yeah, the age.
you know.
It's a much more modern building,
Mhm.
handicap accessible. appropriate
And-
bathrooms, you know.
And I have a big, strong, I will tell you personally, I do have a big, strong tie to the downtown. We are constantly pushing how we need to revitalize the
Yep.
downtown, we need to be, I think we're such a prominent figurehead in the downtown. I struggle with, well, if City Hall moves out, well, why should any of us come in? You know, I struggle with that. Maybe that's more emotional, but
Well, no, that's we talked about that, that would be, an issue that we'd have to address, and how does that look? I mean, this is Foley's trademark home right here, and I think the most viable option is for City Hall to stay here, extend this space by moving the library, if they're willing to do that. Otherwise,
Right, it's two parts. They also have to be willing to accept that responsibility of housing the library.
or
So-
we acquire the building and house them at the,
Right, or we acquire the building.
and we
So
house
could-
them there.
so could we say that it is a hard no to relocate City Hall down to their building?
Yes,
Can we say that?
yes.
I have to agree. I'm afraid that we would get into a money pit
Yeah.
that we would not be able to make work. If the library is willing to work, move down there, and we expand and use this to whatever, because we not only get the building, but now we gotta remodel down there to make it fit for us. I'd need more on the outer structure, how's the roof look, but you mentioned boiler system for heat. Sounds like a money pit to me. Yeah, I don't know, I'm a little leery of moving the whole city thing down there.
Can I just add to, we also had some discussion on if the city just says no, like we had, talked about, some other options that we could look at. If we need to down the road acquire another building. If we, help relocate a business and maybe expand our footprint, there may be some other alternatives. If we look into this and it's not gonna be feasible, we might be able to find another solution as well. I don't think you should completely throw that out either, because we might have some other alternatives that wouldn't be as expensive, or wouldn't have if there's a concern of what that building's gonna be like in 20, 30 years.
Yep.
We can continue, if you're good with that, we can look at that
Yep.
library option, I'll report back.
Yep.
Let's do that, and let's start there and then see
Yep.
where we go.
All right,
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
one thing that we gotta, maybe I operate differently, is when I plan my expenses, I look at the full picture. I don't just say, I got $20, I'm gonna go spend $100. That's what you guys are doing. We need to do a citywide facilities plan. Your two oldest buildings, you aren't even talking about.
That was next.
Your two tightest buildings, you're not talking about. You wanna talk about crappy offices?
Yep.
Stop on down. I don't have what is it, 40 by whatever, yeah.
If that,
You need to look at everything. Open up your eyes.
that was next,
I
Mark.
have to agree.
You guys want this 24/7 service by those other departments. You don't wanna give them a lot. So please do that. I'm just trying to, instead of pushing everybody aside, like we gotta have this now, you need to stay downtown with your city hall. You bought those stupid lights out there that been nothing but problems since 2016. And now talk about abandoning your downtown. That's very poor leadership, in my opinion. So, that's what I gotta say.
Thank you. Is there any new business? Anyone for open forum, second try? No?
So I'm Jacob with the Benton County News for the Recorder over there. This is gonna probably be my last council meeting. My wife and I are planning to move to Florida, so I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that, unless you have, your second one during the month, that, this will probably be the last one, which I'm very sad about. I love this little town. And honestly, I loved you guys. You guys were so awesome. And so I think I've talked to each and every one of you, including Sarah and Mark and Katie individually, Rosalie, of course, too, individually about a number of different things. And in my opinion, and I don't have to say this, that you guys embody what government should be. From Sarah, who you're the best city administrator I've ever worked with, by far. you guys, you should definitely be grateful for that. So thank you for all the time you spent with me, all the explanations you had to give me, 9 times on the same thing, because I can never remember. And you guys too. You guys are very, very unique and individual, and that's a great thing for city government in my eyes. There's a lot of talk about, especially at the city level, of like rubber stamping things, and you guys don't seem to do that. And you have your conversations out in the open in the public. It's what government should be, in my opinion. And I've only been in the industry for 6 years or something like that, but I've covered a lot of, each paper has a big coverage area. Not a lot of councils operate like you guys do, and so that's something I've always appreciated about you guys. So for moving forward, I don't know, I haven't even asked what their plans are as far as internal hire or whoever it might be, but my plan is, my hope is, because I'm supposed to be done by August 1st, but I told them that, because my owners are great, that they're going to keep the quality of the newspaper high. I'm comfortable to say that. I don't know exactly what the process is going to be, but I'll keep you guys informed as much as I can, and hopefully, the nice thing would be is if I could, bring the new person around, where he or she, and introduce you guys to he or she, or him or her, and kind of go from there. So, so basically, just a heads up that this is probably my last council meeting, and not that I'm never going to talk to you guys again, but yeah, I just want to let you guys know that what the plan is, and that I'll keep you informed moving forward. So, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for everything.
Good luck.
Anyone else?
Hi, Deb Olson, 600 Dewey Street. With the Coalition of Greater Minnesotas, I heard them talk about the lead line inventory and replacement. And I know a lot of Foley is older homes with lead pipe. If also in the discussion with that monies that are coming, I jotted a note. How will a homeowner be able to access the monies available for lead pipe replacement? If some kind of dialogue could be obtained about grant information through this monies, I think a lot of people would certainly appreciate it. I know when you're doing your inventory. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Do I have to? All four say aye.
Aye.
Against? Meeting's closed.
Don't forget, if you guys wanna go to the gardens, it's having the thing till. 8th, right?
Yep.
I emailed you guys all.
Huh? Nobody talks about a facilities plan. That's what I always plan my money out.
But if you remember, a number of months ago, I brought it up, and we kinda sat here like, well, I don't know if we wanna do that or not.
I do.